Hello, and welcome back to the Sugar Mama podcast, where we talk about all things related to balancing your blood sugar. I'm Jennifer Hoppert, a certified holistic nutrition therapist and owner of PHN Company, which is short for Produce Health Nutrition Company. PHN creates science-based nutritional health and wellness programs for companies and individuals striving to balance their glucose naturally. If you want to know more, please visit www.phncompany.com. In our show today, I will discuss 8 blood sugar hacks for Memorial Day parties. So let's get to it. I remember when I was young, and we kids, we were very active at these warm weather outdoor parties. We'd run around outside playing all kinds of fun games. And if there was a pool at the party, you could put some money on me being in that pool the whole time. My mom, she would have to drag me out of the pool at the end of the night, and of course with me protesting and begging for just a few more minutes. But the grown-ups, they would just stand around in groups or sit at tables chatting and drinking the whole night. Now, if you haven't noticed by my very subtle accent, which I don't really think I have, but some people have told me they can hear it, I came from the Midwest. And growing up in the Midwest in the 70s and 80s, people used to, let's say, imbibe quite a lot. So you might hear me mention drinking every once in a while. And, hope that doesn't bother you. But, I never realized how much we all drank until I moved away from the Midwest out to the West Coast. And then I would go back to visit where I grew up. Yeah, that was a real eye-opener. After that, I kind of started looking for healthier options and other interesting things for me to do for fun. Now, I don't mean to intend to throw any shade on Midwesterners. They're good, they're kind, and they're very generous people. I mean, they're my people, and I love them. So this is not a slam on Midwesterners. Okay, so nowadays, I'm the grown-up, and I find that I'm one of those adults at the parties. And just like the adults when I was a kid, we tend to usually sit or stand around and talk while we eat and drink. This is a bad habit, especially if your feet start to get tired of standing at parties while you're just eating. So, this is also a sneaky way to let your glucose levels rise too high. What are a few strategies to prevent this glucose spike, but still enjoy your Memorial Day parties, you ask? Well, obviously, you could eat all you want, eat all that party food and spend your whole time running around like a kid trying to burn it off. Or you could sit and chat the whole party long, but maybe you only eat lettuce. So, obviously, neither of these options are, they're not very attractive. They're not even really realistic. So how about I tell you my top 8 hacks for balancing your glucose levels while still enjoying and making the most of a Memorial Day party. Okay? My first strategy for avoiding glucose spike is to just move around at the party whenever possible. Maybe join some kind of an activity or a game. You don't have to play capture the flag with the little kids, but maybe just don't sit the whole time. Get out of your chair, invite a friend to play maybe like cornhole or lawn darts, or even just maybe toss a ball with someone while you talk, if that's an option. You want to make a point to walk around the yard or the park or wherever you are. Be the social butterfly and talk to your friends and talk to everybody. And if there's a pool at this party and the situation is appropriate, you know how I love my pools. Maybe consider jumping in, going swimming, splashing around for a little while. I know that maybe doesn't always work when you're a grown-up, but, the point here I'm trying to tell you is just to move around and burn off some of the sugar you've eaten. And if you think about it, it's really hard to eat if you're moving around and talking. So not only does it burn a little glucose, but it always keeps your hand and mouth busy so you aren't constantly eating. My second idea is maybe exercise before you go, like in the morning or when you get home after the party, like if it's an early in the day party. Although, usually after parties, we do tend to be a little tired. And so it's likely you won't really have the motivation to exercise after a party. Just, This is one of those moments where it's like, try to be really honest with yourself and try to be like, I'm not going to, if it's a party where you're going to be late getting home, try to get a little exercise before you go. Even maybe if it's just like stretching or yoga or just a simple walking the dog around the block. The idea here is to burn off a little of that glucose, but you'll also get the benefit of improved circulation and, maybe a little bit of a bump up in your mood. Third idea is to eat a small healthy meal before you go. And I know most people plan to just eat at the party, but those are the people that are usually not really concerned with their glucose levels, and maybe they should be. I am writing another future episode about the many invisible challenges that we Americans face on a daily basis without realizing how they're affecting our blood sugar. So that's going to be helpful in the future, but let's get back to my point here. Before you go to the party, eating a small meal, it could be effective, especially if you fill that meal with, whole foods and healthy fats. I don't know, maybe how about a bowl of soup if it's a colder weather day? Or if it's like the summer, what about like a green smoothie with a little bit of protein powder in it, right? Then when you get to the party, you won't be as tempted by the desserts if you're already full. You really don't want to miss a fun social event just because you're stressed out by the food that'll be there. So prepare ahead of time. And you're going to take a shower and you're going to put on some nice clothes and makeup and hair and all that. So you're preparing yourself for the party. So why not prepare your insides, your digestion for the party as well so that you manage it well. Hack number 4 brings me to the point that I want to clarify. I don't want to make it seem like I'm simply, saying all calories have an equal effect, because I'm really not wanting to say that at all. It's just not that simple. Different foods absorb at different rates. There are different kinds of carbohydrates, and they break down at different rates or use different processes. Like, for instance, fructose and glucose. They're metabolized differently. I'm going to go into this in an upcoming episode in the near future, so stay tuned on that, because that's a really interesting little topic that I found not a lot of people know about. So carbs that are low in fiber, they usually break down the fastest. I'm talking about maybe like candy or like processed white flour foods like bread or pasta, crackers, things like that. And that's why you often hear recommendations to eat whole grains. It's because a grain is considered a whole grain if it still has a husk attached. That husk has a lot of fiber in it, so it doesn't break down into glucose so fast that spikes your blood levels, blood sugar levels. Fiber digests much slower, and when carbohydrates are mixed with it, they get slowed down as well. Now, I have mixed feelings on eating grains, but I'm not going to go into that right now. It's just trying to give you the gist of like fiber and carbohydrates together. So I will go into my opinion on grains in a later episode. The 5th hack is about how the timing of eating actually matters. You may have heard of intermittent fasting, and if not, I'll tell you, it's when you limit the block of time, usually within a 24-hour period, that you ingest calories. There's lots of ways to do this, but the basic idea is to allow your body to use up all of your available glucose and glycogen, which is stored glucose, using it all up during your non-eating time block, which is usually overnight. So your pancreas, it gets a little rest on making insulin, and your body gets a little break from having to digest a lot of the food. This gives your body a chance to send its energy in other directions, like maybe rebuilding or detoxifying. But it also gives you a chance to burn a lot of that excess sugar off. Hack number 6, that's about getting back to the idea that all calories are equal. You should know that the quality of the food really matters. This idea, it reminds me of a time when I was on a diet when I was younger, many years ago. This particular diet, the rules said that a person needs to eat, they can eat whatever they want, as long as it only came to 1,000 calories a day. So if you think about that rationale, okay, so I can eat 10 100-calorie cookies for my entire day's food supply. Or if I were more disciplined, I could choose to eat several pounds of raw veggies in a day. The calories would probably be about the same for the day, so I wouldn't be breaking the rules. But obviously, that would not have been healthy. So that's not helpful, especially for blood sugar issues or digestion. For optimal blood sugar balance, it's wise to balance your food groups throughout the day. So instead of just cookies all day or just raw veggies all day, try to get a little bit of each food group. The combination of fats, fiber, and carbs together in a meal will slow down the carbs and will keep them from turning into glucose all at once and will help minimize the spike of glucose. I always find it easier to remember science facts like these when I use metaphors. So here's another one of my awesome metaphors. So have you ever gone to an amusement park with senior citizens, like maybe your grandparents? If you have, they walk very slowly. They take a long time to get around the park, and they usually don't go on many rides. Plus, they wear sensible shoes and sunblock and usually pretty ugly hats. But because they are slow, steady, and prepared for the weather, they can last all day without getting too tired out, without getting dehydrated and sunburnt. And, really that's a major accomplishment when you're a senior citizen. And because they don't go on those super fast spinny rides, they don't make themselves dizzy and nauseous or disoriented and exhausted. So that's what, grandparents at an amusement park are like in a day. Now the kids, on the other hand, they usually race through the park, cutting off slow-moving groups, riding the fastest, nauseating rides, eating nasty, greasy junk food, so that by the late afternoon, they end up exhausted, sunburnt, feeling sick. And then the cranky whining begins. But if the kids have to stay with their grandparents, they have to stay regulated all day, which lets them last longer. They probably wouldn't love it. Doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but it would stabilize the experience. So think of dietary protein, fiber, and healthy fats as those grandparents. And the carbs, they're the kids. If it weren't for the slow, wise, steady grandparents, the kids would just take off, cause mayhem, and ruin the day. Just like how the carbohydrates quickly break down into glucose and rush into the bloodstream, causing an imbalance and creating havoc in our body. But keep those kids with the adults, and they are forced to slow down and moderate their activity, and then they don't burn out so quickly. Just like how if we blend those carbs with protein, fat, and fiber, they're forced to metabolize slower and gradually trickle into the bloodstream, therefore avoiding that destructive glucose spike. So combining groups in this way keeps us fuller longer as well, so we don't feel the need to, eat again too soon. These foods, when you eat them in this combination, they actually help stabilize our blood sugar. So using these recommendations at a party, you can make a plate of food that has a good balance of protein, fat, healthy fat, fiber, and carbohydrates. Plus, the mix of these kinds of foods helps us feel more saturated, like I mentioned before. Once again, I'm thinking of another time that I went to an all-day party a few years ago. Now, I knew I'd be there for quite a while, all day, so I brought lots of veggies and fruits and cold salads, and I did that so that I could avoid the sweets and the refined carbohydrates that, are on every basic party table. The problem was I was there so long that I had pretty much basically eaten cold raw veggies for breakfast, then later in the day for lunch, and then kind of a little bit later in the evening for dinner. And now the party was still going on, and they're starting to bring out dessert. And I'm looking at those cold raw veggies for dessert, and I was just like, no, I just can't do it anymore. So, that's you got to probably try to keep that in mind, Hack number 7. How about bringing your own favorite food to the party? But of course, you're going to make it from a healthier recipe, or maybe you'll buy a healthier version. That way, if you're hungry and you want to munch on some tasty foods, you've got some good options. So let's say you bring chips. Try to make them a healthy version, like maybe baked chips. Make sure you include lots of dips for them, like guacamole and salsa or a cream dip. Yes, I did say cream. What? Did she say cream? Yes, I said cream. And, if you were alive in the 90s, everything was fat-free. So, hooray, we get to eat cream again. And that's because fat makes you feel fuller longer. It satiates you, but it also slows down the metabolism of sugars. So dipping your chips in a healthy fat dip is a good idea. I mean, within reason, of course. It's wise to have more veggie than dip in a single mouthful. But remember, fat has more than twice the calories than carbohydrates or protein. So keep that in mind and just don't overdo it on the fats. Bringing baked, natural, no sugar, high fiber chips, that's a great idea, but so is bringing some of those fresh veggies I mentioned. Dip veggies like maybe green beans or broccoli or carrot sticks. These are great snack, and these are dip veggies such as green beans, broccoli, or carrot sticks. They're a great snack. And the fat from the dip helps the beta-carotene in the veggies, like carrots, convert to vitamin A in your body, so it can be used as an important antioxidant for tissues like, say, your eyes. See, the beta-carotene in foods like carrots, it needs bile in your digestive tract to help convert it to retinol, which is a form of vitamin A. Now, vitamin A is an antioxidant, so it helps fight free radicals, which damage our tissues. Now, a properly functioned liver and gallbladder will make more bile when you eat healthy foods. And this will help that conversion of beta-carotene to vitamin A that I just mentioned. And the last hack, number 8, is to make sure you bring enough to share with everyone and still get you through the whole party. So I'm going to use another experience. I'm going to refer to a time when I went to a party years ago, and I had brought a delicious, healthy fruit and nut plate. And within minutes of putting my dish on the table, it was devoured by all the other guests. So when I went to make my own plate, the only thing left were just bowls of cheap, greasy chips and those tasteless, bleached, artificially colored grocery store-made cookies. So make sure you bring enough for everyone, including yourself, so that you can snack generously. And make sure that you take a lot of snacks as you prepare this dish before you go to the party. It's just a real bummer to spend the extra time and the money and the extra energy to bring a gorgeous, healthy, tasty tray of food and then have it be finished before you even get any. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, what good is a party if you can't eat the party food? And I get it. I do get that. But, consider that maybe you might be focusing on the wrong thing here. Parties are about friends, not necessarily the food. Anyway, if you're the kind of person who loves to indulge in a treat at a party, then just bring your own healthy dessert. There's no judgment. There's no shame here. Remember, we're trying for perfection. We're not trying for perfection. We just want progress. So if you think about it, if you eat 3 healthy-ish desserts instead of 3 nutrient-void desserts, that's still progress. Now, it's not ideal, but it's progress, and it's a good place to start. Again, we're going for progress, not perfection. So I try to put all kinds of alternatives into my recipes. And in later episodes, I will share many of my delicious reduced sugar, all natural recipes. I have this cookbook at home. It's written by Jessica Seinfeld and is titled Deceptively Delicious. And I love this cookbook because all the recipes in this book, they have vegetables hidden in the recipe, like zucchini in chocolate cake or squash in macaroni and cheese. Well, the benefit of this is that not only will you increase the nutritional value of the dish, but again, by adding the fiber to your recipe, it helps slow down the breakdown and absorption of the sugars. I'm going back again to that whole grandparents at the amusement park metaphor. So I recommend you try to avoid the white flour, white sugar, dessert-like foods and go for something with more fiber. Well, what am I talking about? Well, how about these suggestions? Maybe sliced fresh apples dipped in a full-fat cinnamon vanilla yogurt. It's very tasty. One of my favorites is when you take a pitted date, a whole pitted date, and you fill it with peanut butter. Oh, just try to make sure that your peanut butter has no hydrogenated fats or added sugars. And again, this is another thing I'm going to get into in the difference between healthy and unhealthy fats in another upcoming episode. But that's a good one. You're definitely going to want to listen to that one. Okay, another thought. How about banana slices smeared in nut butter? I really like sun butter for this. It's really smooth and creamy, and it doesn't break apart or tear your banana slice when you smear it on. Then again, there's chopped fruit salad with shredded coconut. You might say, well, why coconut? Because, again, it's a healthy fat. And what does healthy fat do when we mix it with sugary carbs? Altogether now, it slows the metabolism of the carbs into sugar so they don't break down too fast and hit the bloodstream like a tidal wave of sugar. I mean, am I starting to sound like a broken record or what, right? I'm really driving that point home. Okay, and then my last suggestion. Homemade cookies or brownies made with maybe a nut flour, maybe put some pureed veggies in there. How about some fiber blends like a psyllium husk? And then use natural unprocessed sweeteners like coconut sugar. I have a great recipe that I can attach to the show notes, my favorite cookie recipe. So when we eat food, these carbohydrates, I say they break down into sugar, but they're really breaking down into saccharide molecules. All macronutrients break down like this. The fat, that's going to break down into fatty acids, and protein, it breaks down into amino acids. So remember how I said the carbs break down quickly and can spike the glucose level? We really don't want glucose spikes because it causes an influx of insulin. Why is that a bad thing, right? Well, to put it simply, in a relatively healthy person, insulin can do such a good job at lowering our glucose levels that it can kind of overdo it, and our blood sugar can drop too low, which then can cause hypoglycemia and other problems. So also, too much insulin can be a problem, a pretty significant problem. Again, one more thing I'm going to go to in another episode. I'm going to refer back to that in an upcoming episode because that's going to take a long time to explain. Okay, so I'm going to summarize. I'm just about wrapping this up, but I want to summarize first what I talked about. I gave 8 different hacks for how to help avoid a glucose spike at a Memorial Day party. Now, please consider using some of these suggestions. They're just really good habits to get started on. I also gave 5 tasty and healthy glucose balancing dessert ideas. I gave you my favorite high-fiber, low-sugar cookie idea, and that's a recipe that is guaranteed to please. I know because I tested it on all my friends at our monthly game nights, and they all liked it. And also, I gave you some really just stellar, brilliant metaphors to help you remember that carbs raise insulin and that it should be combined with fat, protein, and fiber. And again, one of those awesome metaphors was the grandparent one. So I hope that helps you to remember those specific details. Okay, and that just about wraps up my episode on 8 blood sugar hacks for Memorial Day parties. I do hope you learned a lot today. And if you want to learn more about my corporate programs, or you want a more personalized one-on-one support with balancing your blood sugar, connect with me on my website at www.phncompany.com and learn about my 12-week program where I work directly with you every week, introducing a new aspect of healthy living for balanced glucose in an easy-to-manage way so you can understand and integrate it into your busy life. And if, of course, you want to follow me for more tips and information, you can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Alignable. Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you are ready to take control of your health, learn more strategies for balancing your glucose levels, be sure to subscribe to the Sugar Mama podcast so you don't miss an episode where we get happy, healthy, and wise together.
Jennifer Hopper is a holistic nutrition therapist, master certified in the state of Colorado. Holistic nutritional therapists are not medical doctors and legally are prohibited from diagnosing, prescribing, or treating disease. Any information you receive from this podcast should not be assumed as medical treatment and should not replace any medical diagnoses, prescriptions, or treatments from your doctor. Consult with your physician before you try any new supplement or exercise routines.